Just a quick tech tip: when you're cleaning these surfaces from the old gasket, that can be really a bear. I mean, they're seared on here pretty good from these old vintage motors, but this power tool right here, hand run power tool, is your friend. I'm just going to tell you that straight away. I have expensive snap-on gasket scrapers, and for the big chunks it's fine, but to get that residue that's on there like that, to get that stuff off, you need a razor knife. Don't get crazy on this thing and start going with those grinder wheel things, or it's gonna leak and it'll smoke, and and just it'll look stupid. So next step for this is to get degreased, and that's going off to get that done shortly. So that, and that's gonna get degreased as well. So got to have it clean before I start taking it the rest of the way apart to go with a paint. So now that I have a better representation of the remainder of the gasket and what have you that's left behind, because it always just separates. They're really stuck in there too. They usually split. You'll rarely get them out, and there's just stuff. Let's see if I can actually, well, that didn't work very well. I guess I gotta shine this. I gotta learn to look through the camera. I don't know how you guys do that. I mean, seriously. These, see, it's really a bear to get this stuff to come off. It really is. It doesn't want to come off. You just kind of got to get underneath it and wiggle back and forth until you get something started. And then, damn, that thing hurts my thumb. And then you can maybe start peeling it off. I mean, it's really, really freaking on there. And the other one I showed you was kind of the done product, and that was as nasty as this. Roughly, the gasket just separated. So when this is said and done, let's see if I can try to, yeah. And you might hit some sharp edges. And see, this stuff, even with a brand new razor blade, is so rock hard it just doesn't want to peel off. Now I'm not going to bore you with doing this for an hour, but I wanted to show you that pretty much you can hear it, I'm sure. It's like scraping concrete. Now, there's a lot of gasket. You can see I've got that pretty clean. Whoa, I got that pretty clean. And that's what this is going to have to be in order to do what needs doing here. So it's going to take a while. You're going to be at it a while, so be patient. And good luck. That's all I got to tell you. Try not to gouge into the aluminum too. You can see, I don't know if you could see that, but I was starting to go. God damn, my phone's stupid. You're starting to gouge into the aluminum, and you don't want that. You may want to take, for this really, really bad stuff, you may want to take a gasket scraper tool and like on a drill or whatever, or air tool, and take the bulk of this off, but just don't get crazy and start digging it up. That's the big thing. And I probably will use a power tool to this, because this one's really bad. And then also on the inside of where the head base gasket is too, I wanted to show that too. And this is a real pain in the ass to get to. God damn it. This is a real pain in the ass to get to with a razor blade or a gasket scraper. It's real, sucks. But you got to get this stuff off of here. And don't try to reuse these gaskets. You could buy them on eBay. There's a bazillion of them out there, and there's so many people restoring. And these fit so many years of 6-cylinder Mercuries and 4-cylinder Mercuries too, by that way. I don't know, many people don't know this, but the 4-cylinder Mercury and the 6-cylinder Mercury have the same footprint. In other words, the same bolt pattern, and it fits the same. The bottom of the block is identically the same. So realistically, you could take a 4-cylinder gear midsection gear case and put a 6-cylinder power head on it if you wanted to do that. I've seen it done, and I've seen some crazier stuff done. I know a guy who's got a tiller handle Mark 75. Wrap your mind around that. I'll be back. Well, we're back to Frankenmercing. This is after everything was pressure washed and steam cleaned. You can see all that oil and gook and slob is all gone out of here. And if I have a good one of those, I will open this side up and snake this guy out, because that's how you get these off. This one here has got a little burning on it, but if I have a better pair, I'm going to use them. But we'll see. You can see that the gasket was all removed, and this one was fairly negotiable with the razor blade, and it's clean enough because the new gasket will be going right over that. Fun fact, the gasket for this side and the gasket for that side is the same gasket. Which I want to talk a little bit about that. And one thing we're going to be doing next is we're going to be pulling these shocks off of here, but we're going to do something before that. We'll get back to that in a bit, but I wanted to show how clean this was now that it's been pressure washed, and I really hate that. By the way, my phone is in magnifying mode for some bizarre reason. You can see it's burnt here too, and this is pretty common. It's not the end of the world for that to be burned away. I've actually taken these, loosened these up, turned them so they were downward, and they were just fine, because the other side isn't burnt and is in good shape, really good shape. So I may do that one way or the other. That's not staying. This side here, as you can see, this is all cleaned up too. If you remember how skanky that was, it's just terrible. But this has all been steam cleaned and pressure washed, and all the gasket removed that needs to be removed. The other side, well, I was going to point out this too. This little fella right here is a bushing for the water intake, and this goes up in from the back side. So if you're out pressure washing something and all of a sudden you see something black fly across the ground, it's this dude. And I will show you right where it goes. It goes right up in that hole right there. Right, that one, that hole. So this slides up in here, and actually there's a little rib in here behind that, and it locks right into that hole. So they do come out. So we're going to put that in a little bit. I usually lube them up with a little bit of something, so they slide in there and they squat in there just perfect. Now, I'm going to point out that this one was really bad, and I had to take my, I had to break the gasket down with, I believe it was like 80 grit on my die grinder. Or my Dremel tool. I'm not sure which one I used. I think probably my die grinder, because it's less aggressive. But if you do that, do not chew into that aluminum at all. Leave a little gasket behind, scrape it off the razor blade. Just take off the top layer so you can just have a little bit of residue, because if you make this, if you get a gouge into this, that gasket's not going to seal. Yeah, and I don't put gasket sealer on these, because that's just, it oozes out on my fresh paint job, and I'm not digging it. These are little weep holes right here for like any kind of water. You'll see they're on both sides, and this is the hole for the, which has already been re-drilled, cleaned and re-drilled, because it was all full of corrosion. So that part's taken care of, and we'll work on the bottom of the block too. You'll see me working on that. You see some staining here, but not to worry, that'll get sanded off. You got a bolt here, yet it's still sticking up, and that is for the oh, what do you call it? God, I can't believe it. Go brain dead sometimes. the shift indicator. There we go. And then you got this dude sticking up here yet, and which is actually a bolt, and it is really rusted in here, as you can see. And these hold the actually, you know what, I think that's partially turned, which it's not supposed to be. That might be why it's still stuck in there. This bolt has a dual purpose. It also helps hold, it holds the fuel inlet. It goes on there, and I believe these two here hold the coil bracket. And I'm not sure if the coil bracket sits on that or not, but we'll figure that out when I pull the other one apart too. I guess I could go to his pile of parts, but I got to delete this off too. This goes away because we got cable through steering on this motor that we're building. So this rusty fella will get out of here. The this stuff here all scun up, that's going to be removed, and we're going to use a different one that's in much better shape. So we'll be saving all of this, and I always save these little dudes too, these guys, because whoops, sometimes they're just bad, or they're scratched up or nasty, or they get quite a beating. Usually these get abused really bad here because people set the motor down on these. You can see this has got a little bit of a ding right there. You can see a little distortion in that thing. Anyway, so that's what happens. So this is actually really close to going to paint. A few things have to get removed. This obviously has to be removed yet, and these, and then it will be probably bead blasted or sand blasted, probably sand blasted very lightly. The outsides I usually like to just take, and I'll take these off, and those are pretty easy. Screws, or not screws, but 5/16, and let them come right off. And I paint them independently and put them back on later. That way there's paint everywhere there's supposed to be paint. Because when these were painted at the factory, all the pieces were painted and then it was all put together. That's how they did it. So everything went through paint and then it went to assembly, and that's kind of how it went. So anyway, so enough about the bottom pan and where we're going with that. So I wanted to show you how clean it was versus how it was before. Oh my god, I got so many things to move. So we're gonna get back to this, but before that we're gonna go do something entirely different. I'll be right back. Well, it's time to get in the heart and brains of Frankenmerc. Actually, the brains is Tony, because he's the one running it. So there's the brain. We'll see whether the brain is fully functioning or not. Probably come springtime. Now there's components that I'm going to be saving off this one. This wraparound is actually in really nice shape. There's no real dents or dings in it. I'm going to strip this decal off, and we have a brand new decal, which is something a little special. And this faceplate is in pretty good shape, so it's a toss-up on which one I'm going to use, but this one needs all new decals, and Bob Shapton actually sells that center decal, or center emblem. So that's not a big deal. You can pick those up. I actually think I have an NOS one of these foil ones somewhere. I have bits and pieces of decal kits as I bought out at different Mercury dealers, but that top cap we're going to save. We're going to save this. We're going to put that away for another day. We're going to save this beautiful piece of stainless molding. We're going to save this beautiful piece here, and pretty much the rest of it's going to get chucked. So what we're going to do today is, this video is going to be pretty much going to have to be dedicated to the power head removal. So, because there's a lot to it, a lot more than what you think. Yeah, let's put this guy off to the side here for the moment. Okay, so where I'm going to start with this is probably going to be over here is I'm going to remove the wiring harness, because that's going to stay with the motor like we did with the 850. I'm going to remove the wiring harness. I'm going to very carefully remove this bolt, which, as you know, I screwed up on the last one and spaced it out, but I didn't care because this one's in much better shape. This wire is not frayed or damaged in any way, so I will be using that wire. So that's a save. So let's see, going around here, then we're going to remove the newer style voltage regulator, because I want to keep that with this motor, or a rectifier is really what it's called. So these hoses that are down here are going to be removed. I'm not sure if I'm going to take them off one way or the other. They're both coming off, and whatever best ones that I have, I'll use clean and use with the freshly painted motor. Sometimes these can be a real bear because they really get singed on there, and they're kind of like, you just got to be really careful taking them off. You don't have to redo any or take up any of the wiring harness off whatsoever if you're going to do a complete power head pull. One of the problematic areas to doing the power head pull is down here in the shift linkage area, because I don't know if you can see that, but where my finger is right there, the nuts for these are on the back side. So the only way this is going to come out is this whole rod that you see here for the throttle. This whole rod has to pretty much, and this thing is in my way. Let's see if we can just, nope, I'm not going to push my luck. Just get it off the side. So what you got to do is you got to get this thing timed with the shift lever, and being the gear case is off, it moves around, as you can see. And so you got to get this timed with the throttle, move the throttle around on however it wants to get out of there. Okay, so if it wants to get out of there in this way, I think that's how I did it the last time, is I just took the bolt out and slid it back and towards the power head, and it popped right out of there. So very easy to do, which I will be working on that. And as far as the shift stuff, that just can all stay there. That's neither here nor there. This side is far more complicated. Obviously the wiring harness has to be taken off of here, and we're going to leave this wire right in its clips, not to disturb it, because we'll clean all this when at some point. We're going to take the coil bracket loose, and the reason I'm mentioning all this and how to do this is because I'm not going to video me doing it all, because number one, you probably couldn't see what I'm doing because it's so tight spaces. We'll take the coil wires off so we get travel, and then the wiring harness will travel with it, because we're going to take the wiring harness off by these 4 screws and push the wiring harness in towards the block, so that stays with the motor, but the coils have to come out. So I usually leave them connected. Generally there's enough wiring harness once you push this back in to take and lift them up out of the way. But this bracket has to go, because this is in the way of the fuel line, unhooking the fuel line. Now you can take the fuel line off right, I believe it's this guy. You can take it off right here, but then you have the potential of this O-ring leaking, and if it's not leaking, why piss it off? It's old and cranky, like me. Where did the wise on that piss it off thing? Just ask my kid. So anyway, these are the things that we're going to be doing here, and this is more complicated because some of these bolts, this bolt goes through and there's a nut on the back side, and that's easy. But the ones on the inside that are down in the, well, you can't even see them down in there. Nope, you can't see them. I know where they are, but they're unpleasant, and Let's see. No, you can't. Well, there's one straight down from my finger. That's the easy one. The one in the middle, not so much. The one, yeah. So that's kind of how this has to go. Once the coils are removed, everything starts to get a lot easier. But you really got to get these up and out of the way. And then I just hang them off the power head somewhere where it's convenient. Now, we're going to also take off this top cowl. That's the first thing we're going to do. Actually, I'm sorry, I was way over on the other side. But this is going to come off first. Now, fun fact. Mercury, in their infinite wisdom, in this era, previous to 1965, the only way dealers could lift these is by putting a hook in here and a hook in here, just like you've seen me do before when I'm moving motors around. And then it would go up to a cherry picker and they would pick the whole motor up. So, or two hefty guys would just pick them up by the handles here and put them on the back of a boat. I know some guys, like myself, used to just pick them up when I was younger, 200-pound motor, and put them on the back of a boat. Well, that's probably why my back is junk. Word to the wise, you behemoth monsters. You're going to end up like me. And I'm not a behemoth monster, but I was pretty tough in my young days. Let's see, where else? Let's see. So we get past the fun fact thing. Which leads me to another fun fact. So in 1965, it was just such a hassle. They did away with how they were doing things. In 65, they put a clasp in here and a rubber bushing up front, and a hook on the. They actually had a piece running down the front, and there was a hook, and it would go on front first, squat down, and latch. Okay, in 1968, 66, 65, 6, 7. Okay, in 1968, they changed that again to a front latch, which is like most of them all the way into the 80s. It had a front latch and top popped right off. But the fun part was they started using a thing called a lifting eye. If I can pull the right drawer. This is a lifting eye. It screws right into the flywheel, and you can easily lift motors in and out, and the weight of the motor got substantially more. These dry weight, I think it was up to 1964, the dry weight was like 198 pounds. So complete motor was 198 pounds. So a 200-pound motor. The shipping weight, I believe, was 198 is what they called it. But of course it would go in a crate, that sort of thing. So if any of those box crates were still available, they'd be worth just buku money. A Mercury, and it's still in a new Merc. I actually know of a guy who's got a brand new 1500 XS. Never been put on a boat. Never been run. Which I think is insane. Okay, so back to this. So I'm going to remove the top. And then, the removal of the top, before I get ahead of myself, this green wire right here. You need to take this screw out. It's right there. And then put it back, because there's power wire. This is your choke. Okay? This comes up, goes underneath the power head. You got to take this little dude off right here. And that one right there. And then that wire goes up in there. Now, you're going to see this choke rod right here where my finger is. That choke rod, generally, most of the time, but of course this one doesn't, has a little cotter pin that goes through the end of it up in there, and you have to take that out. Now when you take the top off, that plunger that you see right there will just fall out of that solenoid, but the green wire goes to the choke mechanism, and that is your actuating wire. So that's what does that. Some actually still have the grounds hooked up for the top cowling. Most do not. Another thing, so there's a bolt up under here where my hand is. There's a bolt there, or nut, There's a stud actually coming out of the top cowling. There's a stud here, one on the other side, and 2 in the back. Okay, you don't want to take the 3 bolts out like someone else did with the other one. And hang on a minute, I want to show you this. Okay, now we're going to get down here. Okay, you see that bolt right, plug wires, come on, see that nut right there, that you take out. You see those 3 bolts? Do not take those out. They'll stay with the top cowling. And then you'll see on the other side another nut that's right there. Now I'm going to point out another little thing while you can't really see it. But on top of this, there's a shim, okay, on that stud. Do not lose those. If you lose that shim, that has everything to do with the alignment from here to here and how your wraparound fits, and your wraparound will not fit if you lose those shims. I think you're like a 1/2 inch or something. I've actually had to make some because I have lost them. So that gives you an overview of what's going to happen here, and it takes a good solid hour to get all this stuff removed, maybe an hour and a half. So be patient and you'll get there. I'll be back when I get some of this tore down.